So let's start with first things first. What exactly is the name of your dog?
I have one dog. The yellow lab is Daisy, who may show up here any second. And then I have an Aussie Border Collie whose name is Charlie.
So how does a lovely lady by the name of Bridget Murphy come up with Daisy and Charlie for her dogs?
Okay, well, Daisy, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Gran Torino.
Yes.
The yellow lab in there's name is Daisy.
Okay.
And I always thought the dog was the best part of that movie. My dog, Charlie, it's really Charlie girl. Because she is a girl. When I got her, I wasn't sure if I was going to keep her, but I was holding this little puppy and it had a scab on her head. And I picked it because that's who I am. And all this pus came flowing out of her head. And so I kept going, who has some perfume in this car? Because it stinks. And find me a vet. So that's how she got her name, because really after the perfume, Charlie.
You know what? That's really, really interesting. I was wondering if you were going to go there because my father's mother, Irene Zuba, that was her favorite perfume. And she didn't just spray herself once.
Oh, no.
You know,
You bathe in it.
exactly. So we called her Granny. You always knew when Granny was entering the room because Charlie entered.
You could smell it.
Yeah, Charlie entered the room before she did.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to talk tonight about some fascinating topics. We're going to talk about addiction. We're going to talk about getting clean and sober.
Yep.
We're going to talk about one overdose and then another overdose.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about this woman by the name of Bridget Murphy, who through all of it never, ever, ever fell off the wagon.
Nope.
And is clearly, kind of as a result of this pandemic, stepping into her power and finally doing what you've been talking to me about doing for a couple of years. So start at the beginning, if you will, and kind of paint a picture for us.
Do you want beginning, like, or do you want like beginning of sobriety?
I just want to get an overview of who was little Bridget Murphy growing up in the big Murphy family.
So, I'm the fifth out of six. I have 3 older sisters, which I like to say means that I know how to take direction very well. I have a younger brother and an older brother. And my sisters played a really big role in me growing up. We had a lot of kids and there was a lot going on. And so somebody had to care. And that was usually my sisters. My parents were there, but they, after my mom got well, her and my dad ended up kind of traveling a lot. And so I ended up really relying a lot on my sisters, not only for friendship, but, you know, things like just making sure I'd wake up and go to school and all that kind of stuff. At about the age of 6, and I have no idea why, but my parents decided it'd be a really good idea to get my sisters 2 horses to ride, and they were terrified of the horses. I was not. I would sneak out to the pasture and jump on these big, huge horses by flinging my leg over the neck. And when they raised their head, they'd throw me on their back. And that's literally how I would ride them at first. Then my dad kind of found out and showed me how to do some other things like bridle them and put a saddle on and things like that. And that gave me a huge amount of independence, but I loved it. I went from house to house all summer long on the lake. I knew everybody. Um, high school was rough.
Let me stop you for a minute. Did your dad grow up riding horses?
He's a farmer.
Okay.
He grew up 5 miles away from our lake place, and that's where the family farm was. He was the oldest of three. He ran the farm, and currently my oldest brother is running the farm.
Did your sisters ever come back to the horses, or did they just
Oh no,
they're not horse people?
nope, they don't want to. They're scared.
So I don't want to assume anything, but with a name like Bridget Murphy and 6 kids, are you Catholic?
Oh yeah, Irish Catholic, as I like to say. I'm part of the CIA, Catholic, Irish, and alcoholic.
Did you go to Catholic grade school?
I did. We started out in public school and then switched. When they tore down our school or closed it. I don't know why. Oh, I know why. They put up a shopping center. And that was in Minneapolis. I currently live in St. Paul. And we're kind of always battling. I'm always battling that. Should I live in Minneapolis? Should I live in St. Paul? But I have lived in the same house for almost 30 years. So I guess I'm not really battling it as much as I think.
Have you ever been to Ireland?
Yes. I sat in a room with 3 other Bridget Mary Murphys.
I kind of brushed it off, but many people know my mom is 100% Irish. Both her mother and her father are from Ireland. I went back with my parents 5 or 6 years ago. We visited both of my mom's families, and alcoholism certainly runs in my mom's family as well.
Yeah.
I laughed when you said the CIA, Catholic Irish alcohol, but I don't believe I'm generalizing. It is true. And I think it's true because there was no television. They were farmers, most of them, and
Yep.
on the weekends and at night after work,
What do you do? Yeah.
they went to the pub, they listened to the music, and they had a pint or two.
Yeah, they had a blast.
Yeah. So alcoholism ran in your family, alcoholism ran in my family. So did you go to Catholic high school too?
I did. I went to a school called Benilde St. Margaret's in one of the suburbs of Minneapolis, St. Louis Park. It's still there.
Was it all girls?
No, it was St. Margaret's was an all-girls school and Benilde was an all-boys school. And they merged. Well, my sisters went there. So probably, let's see, 78. So probably 74.
When your sisters went, was it all girls?
Nope, it was boys and girls. So probably starting in, I think Katie was the first class. So yeah.
Okay, because my oldest sister she's 2 years older than me, and she started out at Muldoon High School, which was the all-girls Catholic high school in Rockford. And then after her freshman year, it closed, and the girls all had to go to the co-ed high school.
Oh, no, that's never good.
That was traumatic for many, many, many of them, including my sister.
I really would have done better in a single-sex school. I think. I really wanted to go, but we had some other things going on that it wasn't possible.
So you said high school was rough for you.
Yeah. What I know today is that I've probably had a couple of learning disabilities all through school. So high school did not come easy by any stretch of the imagination. The part that was easy for me was the part that was probably difficult for other people, which was I could talk to anybody, and I would. Additionally, put on there my last 2 years of high school, I was really severely depressed. Um, and that was pretty hard.
Did you know you were depressed?
Eventually, the end of my senior year, I ended up in the hospital.
What year did you graduate from high school?
86.
Okay, so I know that you got clean and sober on January 15th of 1992.
Yep.
When did you start drinking?
Oh, I was pretty young. I started drinking around showing horses because my cousins were doing it. They were older than I was. I started showing probably 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there. I don't really have a specific year, so
Did did
um,
the, did the drinking affect your academics or your writing?
no, not early on. I think later it did. Um, it was, yeah, later it definitely did because I didn't want to do it was the horses were getting in the way at one point of my drinking. And so I eventually had to make a decision about keeping my horse or selling my horse after my senior year. And I was like, horse has to go. And that really freed me up to drink,
So
and outrageously. And I
you
see it today. It's funny. I used to tell my boys, look, if you're looking for a date, I can tell you where to go. Get interested in horses and board your horse. There are lots of girls there. Um, so, I see it. They get out of high school, they don't really know what they're going to do, and they sell the horse. And the horse at some point keeps them kind of on the straight and narrow.
so you started riding when you were 6.
Yeah.
Riding horses was a source of comfort and self-worth and accomplishment. You showed horses.
Yep.
You got medals or ribbons for your
Oh, yeah.
accomplishments.
Yep.
And you did it through middle school, you did it through high school, and you made a decision. You chose alcohol over your beloved horses.
Yeah, I can't believe it today.
That says a lot about the power of addiction.
Yeah. And I could, it was starting to really brew in me. Um, and then I became legal drinking age, and that was it.
Did your drinking get you in any serious trouble when you were in high school?
Yes. Well, not really. We would, in high school, it was a different time then, and it wasn't like it is today where we're very well aware of drinking and driving and the effects of alcoholism. Um, I, I, being a good alcoholic, I did what good alcoholics do, which is hang out with other really good alcoholics and, get kicked out of a dance here and there. I think it also probably kind of gave me that extra push so that I I would be I felt more comfortable around other people. I felt more comfortable in my own skin. But I don't think in high school I ever felt comfortable in my own skin.
During high school, did it ever occur to you that you might have a drinking problem?
Yes.
It did.
Hmm. I said it many times, which is I shouldn't drink because I'm probably alcoholic.
What would there
Because
what would there
we had a therapist point out who was alcoholic and who wasn't. And I was part of the alcoholic team. And he was spot on.
was there something comforting about being part of the alcoholic team?
Yeah, I mean, it just meant that I wasn't like everybody else, or I could, kind of give me permission to drink in a weird way. Um, and, additionally, we'd go to horse shows and there wasn't a lot of adult supervision. And we would all end up really drunk or not really drunk, but we would drink. And pretty much most shows and never really got in trouble.
How frequent were the shows?
At least once a month during the summer. So we had at least, let's see, we had 3, 4, 5, probably 6 shows a year. They're a full weekend. Plus, if you go out of state, that's a whole nother, 3 or 4. So
What'd you do after high school?
I I went to a community college because I literally didn't know what to do. I'd been in the psych ward, no idea. And my parents were okay with me living at home, but I needed to do something. So that meant I needed to either get a job, which of course I really didn't want to do, or go to school. So I thought it'd be better to go to school. Of course, what's at the community college is boys and people, doing all kinds of things they probably should do. And I had a great time. My grades were not very well. I did, I have a friend of mine from like grade school, and um, we went out for brunch before one of our finals, and we we decided after that semester that the school thought we were winners because we had the withdrawal, incomplete, no grade.
I was just going to ask you, did you get your associate's degree?
Not at that point.
Okay.
So then I'd work, go back to school, I'd work, I'd go back to school until it got really bad. And I literally went to my mom and said, I need help. She said, okay, I'll bring you. So about 40 minutes away from here, there's a nice little campus, Hazelden. That's where the Minnesota model comes from. So I did 30 days in their inpatient. And then I did 4 months of a 3-month program.
Overachiever.
Yeah. Thought I'd stay an extra month. And I was so freaked out that I did aftercare. And I did 2 years of aftercare.
Wow.
But it was, all of that was really great because what it taught me was how to go to meetings, how to work steps and things like that, how to get sponsors, how to do that stuff, because I got into this so young that I was barely an adult. I was only 24 when I got sober. So I was barely an adult, and but I need some help, some little bit extra push there.
So you did a 30-day inpatient, you did 4 months in a 3-month program, you did aftercare for 2 years. Were you still living at your folks?
No. Nope. After I got sober, I did not live with my parents. I lived in St. Paul right after Halfway House with a really good friend of mine. And then somebody else from Halfway I moved in with later. And then I had been dating Andrew. And so then we were, I think, pretty much engaged, and during that time, We got engaged, and then after we got married, we lived here.
So you are a big, big, big fan of Hazleton.
Yes.
And what is there something different about the treatment that they offer?
No. So there's also a place called The Retreat, and the person who started that and is the head of it, I believe, John Curtis. He that's a great program. I if I were to do it today, that's probably, I don't know if that's really where I'd go, because I really needed what I needed. And I think Hazelden really had what I needed.
So what happened to 24-year-old Bridget? I mean, that's really young. And looking around, a lot of 24-year-olds are drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking.
Yep.
What was it that said to you, okay, we gotta stop, we gotta change something, or this is headed for disaster?
I can't tell anybody except for I literally woke up one day. I think I was so sick and tired of being so sick and tired. And that's really it. I had a moment and acted on it. And maybe that's a good thing. I just knew that I didn't want to go on any further like that. And I knew the only way I was really going to hit my 25th birthday was if I got sober and got help.
And did you know that if you asked your mom for help, or when you asked your mom for help, your mom would say yes?
Pretty much. I had a good feeling she would say yes.
Okay. Okay. So where and when and how did you meet Andrew?
So one of my jobs in Halfway House was to answer the phones, because I like doing that. So I would take messages, whatever, and he would call for his friend Brian, and he would ask for me if Brian wasn't around, because he felt like I was the only one who could take a message and get it to him. And so then he'd come over, because he was at a different Halfway House. And he'd come over, and those guys would, I don't know what they would do, probably go to a meeting or something. But he saw who I was. And he would talk to me, which wasn't a bad thing. But I didn't really get who he was or what was going on. So I got out of Halfway House, and I think the day or the next day, had a phone call, and it was from him, and he said, "This is Andrew from New York." Well, I'm living in St. Paul, going to meetings. I bet you I know 5 or 6 Andrews from New York, even today. So I didn't know which one it was, and I thought to myself, well, it doesn't really matter who it is, I'll go out with him. And so I did. I started dating him at that point. And we just dated until we got married.
Did you guys hit it off immediately?
Oh yeah, funniest guy, smartest guy I've ever met. Next to his sons.
And was he in recovery?
He was. And he had about 6 months more than I did. He actually landed in Minnesota the weekend of the big, huge snowstorm over Halloween. Everybody around here will know what it is. And he thought that was like typical for Minnesota. Of course, it was this big, huge blizzard, and we shut down for 3 days. But yeah, that's when
So he grew up in New York.
Yep, Park Avenue.
Did you guys date long distance?
No, he was here. So he had gotten sober.
Go ahead.
He had gotten sober and stayed here.
Okay. All right. Andrew from New York, but he's living there.
Yep.
Got ya. So how long did you guys date before you got engaged?
Um, well, I think we had a good year to 9 months, so probably a year, maybe a little bit more.
And what's your wedding anniversary?
Well, you have to remember I married a tax lawyer's son, so I picked April 15th.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Of what year?
1992, 92, 94.
And how
Sorry.
did you have a huge, big Irish Catholic wedding?
Yeah, we had 201 with the babysitter.
And Andrew is not Irish Catholic.
No, no, he's Jewish from New York. And yeah, more socially Jewish.
And what was life like then? You're married. Bridget Murphy is married to Andrew.
We went to a lot of meetings, both together and separately. It was a big deal. We'd sit up on Grand Avenue, have coffee. We hung out with a lot of people who we all knew from halfway house and going to treatment. And we were it, quote unquote, in the recovery. Somebody pointed this out to me later, because I didn't really get that. But Andrew had a lot of friends here that he went to school with too. So those guys were there. There's always somebody drinking coffee in my kitchen. And it was fun. It was really fun.
And you have two boys.
Yep. Oliver was born in 1996 and Ben was born in 1998. So the 90s were busy for me. I got sober, got married, had a wad, had
Oh
two.
my God. The 90s were busy for you.
Oh God. Yeah.
And would you say, were you happy?
Oh yeah. I married my best friend. And I was really happy. I had what I thought I had a really good marriage, a really solid marriage. We definitely had a lot of the same passions in life about, we loved our dogs and we liked to spend time with the family, and it was great. And then it wasn't.
Ben was born in 98, and
Mm-hmm.
then we go into 99, and then it's 12/31/99. Everyone's afraid the world's going to end. It doesn't. It's New Year's Day 2000. How was 2000, 2001, 2002 for you?
Horrible. So let's go back to Ben. The day Ben was born. Ben was born on his cousin's birthday, both sides. Number one. And number two, I believe that's the day that Andrew relapsed.
Whoa. The day that Ben was born?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
When I was coming home from the hospital, it took them 2 hours to get the car from the parking lot. We live in Minnesota. Nothing's that busy. I knew something was up. I couldn't quite figure it out. And at about a year, I finally confronted Andrew, and when Ben was about a year, and he went back to Hazelden. And so I was home with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, or an almost 3-year-old, because they're 22 months apart. And then it was sober, relapse, sober, relapse, sober, relapse. Halfway houses, sober houses, you name it. And he never really got sober again.
Was he able to work?
He was. Yeah, when you're working for he was working for my dad, my family company. And so it wasn't until really it was obvious that somebody had confronted him at work. And, I knew what was going on, but I was hoping he kept his job just because.
Did it ever occur to you that life would be easier if you too had a drink?
Oh, yeah, I thought that. Oh, yeah. How come he got to drink? He got to go out and do his drugs, and everybody felt sorry for him. And I was back here with 2 little kids under the age of 3. Yeah, it was not a pretty sight.
And why didn't you?
I'll tell you, my mom had been to a meeting. This is such a weird story. And it was a super similar situation to me. And she was telling me this story about somebody in her meeting, and the husband had relapsed, and then the wife had relapsed, and it was just a mess, and the county had to take the kids. And I think that hit me harder than anything else. And I was like, I'm not going to live that way. I just don't want to live that way. And so, it's always close. When you're in that kind of situation, it's really difficult. So then somewhere around 99 or so, I filed for divorce, waited a year and had to refile. And I had said to him, I don't want to raise my kids like this. I won't do it. So you can go use, but I'm not going to be in your life.
Was that hard for you to do?
Yeah, because I still loved him. It wasn't like I didn't love him. It was like his behavior really was horrible.
Did he admit he had a problem?
Oh, yeah. And because it was so obvious. He just didn't know what to do anymore.
Yeah.
I remember sitting on my porch with him one day and him sobbing like I've never heard. And because he was so heartbroken that he couldn't get sober.
So then what happened?
So then, January 26th of 2003, he was found deceased in his apartment. And that was Ben's 5th birthday. And we went out to New York for the funeral. And my mother and father-in-law picked me up at the airport, and my mother-in-law said to me, you had to divorce him or you would have been drinking too. And she was right.
So Ben was 5. How old was Oliver?
He was 6 going on 7.
And are you the one that told your sons that their daddy had died?
Actually, it was myself, my mom, and my sister. Because, oh God, it's such a weird story. My sister, I was in school also at this time. So my sister Margie called me and was like, what are you doing? Not quite like that, but she got really quiet. And I was like, I just got home. Why? And she was like, and I could tell something was up. And she said, can you just come over here? And I was like, sure. So I went over to her house, and she told me. I didn't want to tell the kids because it was kind of late. So we went over to my parents, who lived around the corner at that point. And we waited till the next morning and just told the boys. And the hardest part was when Oliver looked at me. He's only 6, and he said, he's done this before. And I thought, the fact that you know that was so sad to me.
Yeah. Does Ben have a hard time celebrating his birthday because it's the anniversary of his dad's death?
He doesn't. I kind of used to go, oh, it's the 27th, not the 26th. And at one point he said to me, Mom, I think Dad died on my birthday. And so I think we should just celebrate it then. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go with it.
So you're now really a single mom because your ex-husband is dead. It's you and a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
How did that
work out?
Well, what did it look like?
Carefully. Oh my God, it was chaotic. And there's no better way to say it. I was really a single parent. What it looked like is during the school year, it was, they'd go to school, I'd go to school, we'd meet up afterwards. I would cook dinner, help them get, while I'm cooking dinner, I'm helping them with their homework and trying to stay on top of that. And then they would go to bed, and that's when I could study and do housework, which really didn't get done a lot. During the summer, I was lucky because my parents helped me a great deal. Not only, they really helped me, and we would go up to the lake for as much of the summer as I could. And so that they could have some normalcy with their cousins.
Yeah. Were horses a part of your life again?
Not at that point.
Wow.
Wasn't until 2012.
Did your boys go to Catholic school like you did?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Did they go to Catholic high school?
Oh, yeah. Yep. I like to sometimes refer to it as the St. Paul Mafia, but it's not. It is, they went to a school called Nativity of Our Lord. I have some great friends there. Christy Anderson was one of them, who's been just an amazing friend. Helped me with the boys all the time. Always would offer to take them. I met her the first day of preschool because we were both late picking up. And we both our boys were exactly the same age and best friends. So that was really nice. And, I had some people like the Colemans would love to have Oliver over, or they'd go to this place or that place. And the parents were always really nice about, picking them up or dropping them off or including them. And it was really nice. I remember when the Boy Scouts did a camping trip with their dads. And one of the dads was like, I'll be your dad to Oliver. It was really kind of cute. So
what was school like for both Ben and Oliver?
I think it was pretty normal. They really liked it. That first year after Andrew died, it was really tough because his first grade teacher was not really, I think she had some problems with some boys and that really struggled with that energy level. And definitely I would get kind of a lot of condescending emails, which kind of.
Your husband had just died?
Well, the week after we got home from the funeral, she sent me an email because he didn't have snow pants.
I got this.
I was like, you know what? I don't care.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry. He's going to play outside and get wet. He's fine.
Yeah, I think he ate today, so we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, I used to always say, how do you know it's been a good day? Well, everybody went to bed alive.
Yes, yes.
And, I think people have really high expectations of themselves being single parents. And I go, you got to lower those expectations
Yeah.
because you're not going to have the perfect house, the perfect job, and the perfect children if you're doing it alone.
Yes. Well, and even if you're doing it with someone else, you're not going to have the perfect anything.
Right. You just can't.
Were the boys involved with any after school activities?
Yes, they both played an instrument. Oliver played the flute and Ben violin. And both in school and out of school. And Ben did it from, I think, 5 all the way through high school.
Do you play a musical instrument?
I did play the flute for half a year.
So you loved it?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. My mother is very musical, and as she likes to say, Bridget, I need a body. All you need to do is lip sync. You can do that, right? Nope, nothing needs to come out. Just move your mouth.
So you did say that the horses did come back into your life.
Yes, they did in 2012. Oh my God, that's such a weird story. I was seeing a therapist who said to me, you need to go ride. And you need to ride now, basically. So I had told this to my best friend who said, why don't you come out and see my horse? And I was like, I don't really want to do this. And I really struggled with it at first. And all that needed to happen is I walked in the barn and see a bunch of horses. And I was like, I have to go back to riding. And for a few months, I just took lessons. And then I was like, I can't do this without, I need a horse. And who knew how much, that was really good timing. Really good timing.
Why was it really good timing?
Well, by that point, Oliver was in high school. And he was struggling. And he had that winter, that January, he had jumped off a bridge and broken his back and a few other things. And my saving grace was a horse at that point.
Did he jump off the bridge on purpose?
Yes.
Do you know why?
Because I was going to put him in treatment.
So what was his drug of choice?
Early on, I think it was pot. And somewhere in there, we did move to alcohol. And so what happened is after he broke his back, the psychiatrist at the hospital was completely sure this was a suicide attempt. I didn't believe it, that he was depressed. I believe that he really didn't want to go to treatment. It would do anything to not. And that's a pretty powerful addiction. And had a kind of a big fight with the head of psychiatry on the meds that they were giving. And one of those meds was fentanyl for pain. And I could tell instantly the change in him. And then that was it.
Did that scare the shit out of you?
Yes. And what was even more interesting is I was labeled a really difficult parent because I'm sticking up for my boys. I'm trying to get some help. And instead it was, well, here's a prescription.
So,
And
so he's given the fentanyl to relieve the pain in his back due
yep,
to him jumping off the bridge.
yep. And he had a ton of pain. He had a lot of hardware to just, to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. There was a lot of hardware that needed to be in there, and it was very painful. And he was in the hospital here, I think, for 6 or 8 weeks. And then he went down to Mayo. And by the time he got there, he had a raging infection. So they had to go through and do surgery again, had to clean everything out. And when he was well enough, they did put him in a treatment, and they got him off the fentanyl, but it took a lot. And that was their first thing. And then the day he got home, after it seemed like a really long time, but he's still in IV meds. He gets home and he has pot delivered to him via mail from Colorado. So that's when I knew we were in trouble. And he was still off and running.
Yeah. At that point, did you think there's a possibility this kid is going to end up dead like his dad?
Well, I'm pretty willful. I know that's a really big surprise to anybody who knows me, but I was like, I'll move mountains. If I have to, I'll do it one spoonful of dirt at a time. And I was going to get this kid some help.
Even though you had spent how many years in the program, you're thinking, I will be able to save my son.
I'll get him help. All he needs is help, and I don't know how he graduated high school, but by the grace of God, sometimes God intervenes. And I had a kid who was really good once he was, a lot of pressure on him. And he just, he got through. And I still knew, I was like, I don't know, this is not good.
You and I have talked about this before, and I was really moved by this. You said over and over, he said to you, I am not ready to stop. I am not ready to stop. I am not ready to stop. I like it too much.
Yeah. And that's when I knew we couldn't live together. And so it was probably at that point that he went to see his grandmother in New York. And I came home, I said, here's your apartment keys. Rent's paid for 2 months. And there'll be a pickup truck here tomorrow morning. I'd call your friends. And that's how I got him to move out, because he wouldn't move out any other way.
And how did he feel about being pushed out into his own place?
Oh my God, he was so happy, because now he could go use without me being around or me kind of spying on him.
Yeah.
And him and his friends could go do what, 19, 20-year-old boys do.
Was he working or going to school?
He wasn't, but he got a job in a kitchen, which he was really kind of a foodie. And he really liked figuring out what spices were in things. His dad did that a lot. And so he seemed to be doing okay. And then I don't know what month it was, but he moved in with somebody he worked with. And I did know by where he moved that it probably wasn't the greatest idea.
How old?
And
How old was he?
20, 21.
So he wasn't really asking for your permission.
Oh no, not at this point. He was just using. And it was during this point that he would say to me, nope, I don't, nope, I'm just gonna, no, I like what I'm doing.
Would you see him on a regular basis?
Yeah, I would try to. And at one point he called me and said, can you get me in to see a therapist? And I did. And he only went once or twice. And I think they had said to him, you got to stop using. And he just wasn't ready.
Do you think, I know you can't read his mind, but do you think he thought, well, down the road, I will stop using, but I'm not quite ready to yet?
Yes.
Did he ever say anything like, don't worry about me, I'm not going to end up like Dad?
Never did.
Did you ever scream at him and say, I don't want you to end up like your dad?
Oh, yeah. I offered a lot of good money to get through high school without using. And college. Because statistically, I know that the longer it is until they take their first drink, the better chance they have.
Yeah. So then what happened? What happened to your son?
So he had been over here. He was supposed to come over on Mother's Day. May 2017, he was supposed to come over on Mother's Day. He had just turned 21 in April. And he had been over here on a Monday. And he looked atrocious. And he wanted to make me a meal, but he was high and he was all over the place. And I drove him home that night and I said to him, I'll move mountains. You just say the word. And he looked at me and he said, Mom, I'm not ready yet. And I said, okay, but when you're ready, call me. And I drove away and I started to sob because I knew that was the last time I was ever going to see him. And 2 days later, I was actually in a therapy appointment. My phone went off, but it never does like that. And I just kind of ignored it. It was like, whatever. I got out because right before I went in the appointment, I had called his work. They said, no, he's not here yet, but he should be here pretty soon. They had his roommate go home and he found him deceased in his bedroom.
Who called you?
His job called me back and said, you need to call his roommate. They found him unconscious. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just go to the hospital. And I got home and I grabbed Ben, and Ben and I were in the car. We got to the end of my alley and his roommate called and told me that he was deceased. And I started screaming and jumped out of the car. So poor Ben, there he is trying to make sure that I don't hit somebody or something. And we came back here and I started to call family. We have a family company, so I thought I'd just go down the line. Started with the oldest and work your way to the youngest. And I couldn't get a hold of anybody. And I did it again. And the only person I got a hold of was my mom, who was getting on a plane in California. And I thought, ooh, I was like, okay, just call me when you get off the plane. And then I said to the receptionist, I need to get through to either my dad or my sister. And if you have to walk in their office, do. And right at that point, my sister had walked by and they said, you got to take this call. And so my dad was the first one here. It started to hit me. And I will say, the worst pain I've ever felt.
I have asked you this a million times. Why the hell did you not reach for a bottle and start taking drinks?
Because all my friends, and there's a lot of them, showed up here that night. And nobody left me alone. I barely could go to the bathroom by myself. My friends were here. People were here nonstop for 2 days. And in the meantime, I'm trying to get people in town and trying to plan a funeral. Who thinks you're going to plan a funeral for a 21-year-old?
Well, particularly after his father had died, how many years earlier?
Yeah, so his father was,
His,
oh,
his
13,
14.
yeah, 14 years. I'm
So,
not good with numbers, so yeah.
so Oliver died on May 24th, 2017.
Yes.
Trisha's birthday is May 22nd. I think that's interesting. Like, what was the first week like? What was the first month like? What was the first 3 months like for you?
So most people will notice my necklace if you ever meet me. That was the second day. I was standing on Grand Avenue and I said to my sister-in-law, who was with me at that point, I need to go in this store. And I walked in and that's all I could see was that necklace. And normally I have my pendants on it of Oliver and Ben, but they kind of are cleaning. In between all that, Ben was here. And a year earlier, he had been diagnosed with a pretty significant mental illness. So I was pretty worried about him, but I was okay. I didn't know what to do. What do you do when a kid dies like this? The wake, I guess, was huge. I don't know. I stayed in the same spot. I do remember one of his friends. I'm so sorry. One of his friends showed up. All of his friends showed up at the wake, but one in particular was very high. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the CEO of the retreat at Hazelden, and I said, hey, can one of you guys go talk to this kid? And they did. And I thought, you know what? That's perfect. That's my life. Is those kind of people happen to be in my life when I need them. I didn't have to deal with it. Nobody in my family had to deal with it. They just quietly dealt with it. And I was like, good. The funeral's a fog. And then you get into that point where everybody leaves.
Yes, I know that point.
Nobody's there. All of a sudden was around me 24/7 and then nobody's there. And I was like, well, what now? And I couldn't figure out what to do next. And so I started making checklists, like take out the garbage every day kind of things. And I knew I had to go really slow. As long as I could get dressed and do one thing, I was okay. And then I'd get dressed and do two things. And then three. And then but in between that, I'm having these horrendous days. and I'd go up to the lake and I'd be with my mom and my dad and I'd be just sobbing. And, nobody could help me. And I think it was not long after that I was just in this weird grief mode, and I couldn't. People would say things, and I'd be like, "But it doesn't matter. My kid died."
Yes, yes, yes.
I, how can you worry about the color of your socks? I'm trying to pick out a headstone, and that's when I met you. Not long thereafter. I had read that book, I think, a couple of times before I actually started working with you.
My very first email from you is, so your son died on May 24th.
It was probably the 25th or 26th.
I don't do. I have a June 6th.
Okay, well, that's still pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah, Katie. So my sister had met Tom many years earlier, thank God. And she's the one that said, here's his email. He wrote this book. You'll really like it. And I was like, well, if I'm going to talk to this guy, at least I should know what the book is. And you know what's so great about it? It's like permission to mourn. We don't give ourselves permission to do anything.
I know.
So, like, opening our heart up to do the actual mourning is really the first step. And that starts to happen after the funeral and things. And then you can start your road. But it's so slow, and it has to be. And the other thing, I will say, I was thinking about this earlier today. I felt at about 2 or 3 years after, so not too long ago, probably 6 months, a year ago, it dawned on me that I was having a hard time because I was trying to, like, if I wasn't feeling sad and crying, then I didn't love my son.
Yes.
And it was such a weird part. That was hard. That was really hard. And so kind of getting to the place where I could really take care of myself.
So Oliver died May 24th. When did you like start warming up to them again?
So I had a horse. And literally that first weekend, so we had a weekend, and my whole family was up at the lake. And then we came back and we had the funeral like on Wednesday. It was like Tuesday, Wednesday. So, and it was Memorial Day that weekend. And so the next weekend, my friends had planned a trip about 2 hours south of the Twin Cities to go horseback riding for the weekend. And we rode for a really long time, and it was really fun, and it was the best thing I could have done.
So what's really, really interesting is, this never occurred to me, but the last chapter of my book is called The Horse.
I know.
It's about getting back up on the horse. You literally did that. 2 weeks after your son died, you literally got back up on the horse.
Yep. I had to.
Why do you?
Because I work things out on my horse. I always have. So that summer, I rode every single day. And I would go over our last conversation. I'd go over the last phone call, the last text. I would start to just dissect every little thing. Maybe too much, but it worked for me. And then I'd go to a meeting here or there. I was still always going to meetings, and it was so difficult to kind of come to terms. I always say the first year is about nothing more than accepting the death.
And staying alive, not killing yourself.
That's really what it is. Because can you really, there's that great part in here about after Aaron died that you talk about where you and Trish are laying on the floor and you're looking at the knife. And I read that going, oh yeah. And that's the stuff we never talk about. We don't talk about that moment in our life where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to kill somebody or kill myself or both, because it seems really practical.
Yes. And there's got to be a way out. There's got to be a way out because I cannot do this.
I can't keep doing this for, have that kind of pain for years and years and years. Our lake is in a very small community, very small town. And there's a mom who lost her only child in a war or something. And, she goes to the this graveyard and she is chiseling away at the headstone. And it's still kind of weird. It's still that way today. So when I go up and see Oliver, I usually stop at that one first because it's just kind of interesting to remember that's that kind of pain where you just are like, maybe if I chisel away at this headstone, he'll come back.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about that pain. And it's so thoroughly in us.
Why do you think people aren't willing to talk about that pain?
It's scary. Because if somebody sits down with me and listens to me about the pain I went through, they either have to react and acknowledge. And none of those are easy. I think the hardest part about grieving of loss is you're not just grieving, in this case, my child, but I'm grieving the friends I lost.
Totally. Because when I sit with you on the bench and when I listen to you tell me about your pain, it stirs something up in me because I'm a human being too. And it's all this pain that I've, stuffed down. It brings it to the surface. And then, hey, maybe I would have to deal with it. No. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to stay away from you.
Right. And, arm's length is a good distance. And, I kind of, there are days that it really makes me sad on how many people just, they just don't know what to do or say. I had somebody who literally after Oliver died, stopped calling me. Yep. And would call me every day before.
Yep.
And I finally called her up one day. It took me a really long time to get the courage. And she said, I just don't know what to say. And I thought, you know what? That's probably the most honest thing anybody has said to me. She was like, yeah, absolutely. I'm not calling you because I have no idea what to say.
What would you say are the gifts that being in the program gave you that helped you walk through this journey maybe a little bit more aware?
I would say, so I knew I needed to make phone calls. I knew I needed to connect with people and make more phone calls and connect more, as hard as it was, and also take care of myself. That whole thing about, I did leave my job. a little bit after I got back, and it was the smartest thing I ever did. I didn't want to be there. I really struggled with it. I struggled with who I was working with. And finally, it just dawned on me that it was like, this doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't healthy for you. I remember.
No. It was not healthy for me.
No. So the program taught you not to isolate, not to just, even though you felt like, I mean, I certainly did. I felt like I wanted to just hole up in my room, put the covers over my head, and stay there for about a month.
Right. And it also reminded me to be simple about it. So if I could get up and get dressed and have breakfast,
yes,
I was going to be okay that day.
Yes.
And that's all I needed to do. Instead of saying to myself, well, I need to get up. I need to look really good. I need to interact with this person really well. I need to do this really well. I couldn't do that.
Too overwhelming.
Yeah, but I could get up and have breakfast.
Right. And then after breakfast, decide what's going to be next, if anything.
Right. And it was really that slow and simple for me.
Yes.
It had to be.
You also said something that is very, very, very difficult for many, many women. And I don't mean to be sexist, but you said, I had to take care of myself.
Yes, it is difficult for women. I don't know why it's so difficult for women to take care of themselves. But I think we feel guilty about it. And I would take care of myself by going to a meeting at least one a week. So why was it not okay after this to take care of myself?
Yeah, your son died following the death of your ex-husband.
Sorry. Yeah. So when I started to really focus on, I got to do some work. I'm not really looking forward to it because it's painful, but let's do it. Let's take care of myself. And I would do little things like, I'd take a bath, or, I'd change my sheets, or I'd get laundry, not really get laundry done because I still have bed.
That never really happens.
Yeah, let's face it. But just little things, I'll go for a walk with the dogs. I'll take the dogs to the dog park. And just making those little commitments to myself, because I'm not one who can make a big, huge commitment. If you told me, 28 years ago that I was still going to be sober today, yeah, I would have laughed.
Right.
I don't think I would have given a dime to bet that I'd still be staying sober.
Yeah. One of the things that I've always admired about you, and I think it's helped save you, you are so damn honest with yourself and with other people. You're honest. It's like, this is Bridget, this is Bridget, this is Bridget.
I think so. I try to be really honest with myself. I try to really be honest with other people. I don't think it has come naturally. I think for a long time, my first inclination was to lie about the color of the sky.
Well, and we want to please people.
Right. I'm a really big people pleaser. So I want everybody to like me. And not everybody in the world is going to like me.
But wouldn't you say more and more and more, you don't really give a damn whether or not everybody in the world likes you?
Yeah, I think this year in particular.
Me too. And I think it's
I know we're about the same age. So I kind of sometimes put it up to age, but then I don't really think so. I think it's more.
Not age. It's not age. I think the coronavirus has been really, really, really good for you.
Yeah, it has been. Let's face it, coronavirus is a depressed girl's dream, because I had the government telling me to stay home. not just my head.
You also have an unbelievable sense of humor through the entire thing, through the entire journey that I've had with you.
Yes, I have to. I do kind of laugh at myself a lot. I have to because, even early on in parenting, I had this kind of funny story where I'm first night, nice day, Ben's an infant. I'm taking the stroller and it's front to back. And Oliver keeps telling me that the baby's going to cry. And I was so tired and exhausted. I was like, okay, honey, no, let's keep going. And he said this about 3 times. And then he looked at me and he turned around and slapped his brother across the face. And I didn't know if I should sit down and cry or sit down and laugh. But he was right. The baby was going to cry. And that's kind of my life in a weird way.
Yeah.
And, do you sit down and cry or you sit down and laugh? Well, in that particular case, that day, I chose to laugh.
Right.
And because I had to.
You know what? That's a perfect lead in. You're willing to cry and or laugh.
Yes.
You know that it's not either or, but it's both.
Mm-hmm. Most situations are.
Yeah. Well, but most people don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, it is, I don't know, it's appropriate to cry at funerals, but then, there's that Mary Tyler Moore show where it's the clown died and she can't stop laughing.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like that, where you're like, yeah, I know that maybe the rest of the world thinks I should be doing something very different than what I am, but I'm okay with it.
Is that who you were in high school and in college too?
No.
Okay. All right. So you've become that.
Yeah, and I think we're all evolving. At least I am. All the time, something new comes up. There's a new situation. I prefer. So, that my dad had a pretty bad stroke a year and a half ago, and being able to be with him and kind of grieve that loss that we're gonna have is a lot easier than having that tragic loss and needing to grieve it right. It's like, oh, I have time to kind of process this, to say goodbye, to do what I need to do to be okay with this relationship.
Yes.
No matter what it is.
Yep.
And with Oliver and his dad, I didn't get that.
Right.
And so I had to work on that myself, get okay within me and my relationship with them.
With them not physically in their bodies.
Correct.
Yes. Another thing that I've always admired about you that I think is rare, and I don't know if this is because of the work in the program or if this is who you are, you don't seem to have any problem feeling your feelings and feeling your emotions. It's like you do not stuff. It's like,
oh yeah, sometimes I do.
Well, but when I've talked with you, I mean, you vomit them out all over the place, which is so healthy. You know what? Maybe okay, let me backtrack. When you're in a safe place, you're very willing to bring them up. In other environments, to protect yourself, like me, like all of us, we put on the mask and we don't let anyone, But it's not like you're not aware of your feelings or you're not aware of your emotions.
I wear them on my sleeve.
Yes.
And sometimes I have a big neon sign on my forehead. And, it took me a long time to be able to figure out what emotion was. So once I got that figured out, it was like, oh, well, everybody should know this.
Yes.
And in a way, it's kind of my own community service.
Well, and it's freedom for you, and it makes other people really, really uncomfortable, and they wish you would shut up and sit in the corner.
A lot of, yeah, I've been told that more than once.
So let's go back to the horses. So
Okay.
the horses have been in your life since since your son died. You got back on the horse 2 weeks after he died. Where are you now with the horses?
Okay, so so 6 years ago, I bought a horse for $800. I probably shouldn't have bought her because I didn't get on her. She was very green broke. So, being who I am, I was like, all right, let's do this. And the first thing that happened about a year later, I went to a clinic where I was told it was me, not the horse. And I needed to get my stuff together. And so I really started to ride every single day. And that was a really powerful moment for me too, because I grew up showing horses. So they're kind of a prop. I've never thought of my horses as a pet because they're a tool. Not that I don't love them, not that I don't care for them, but we have a relationship that's a little different. But with this horse, I haven't had that kind of a relationship. And so the way I really started to work through things was by riding her. And I happened to be at a place where I could go on really long rides by myself. And pretty much every day I would do that. I'd go on these really long trail rides and I'd talk to her. I'd just be like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this. And I will say, going back, the day I found out about Oliver, I was on a trail ride with a friend of mine. We were kind of on this dirt road and we stopped and literally probably 1,000 white butterflies landed on my horse and I.
Oh.
And then flew away. And personally, I believe that was Oliver going to heaven or a better place. So that is why I've been able to do this riding, is I ride and I have been able to work things out. And I know that I do really good work around my horses. And so the idea had come up to do some equine therapy. Put that into context of my degree is in social work. I've always worked with women who have been in recovery a lot and helping them kind of move on to that next step and what that means, and when they're struggling, what that means. And I find that riding and working with horses, whether it's riding or just brushing a horse, people are able to really bring up those things that they need to bring up so that they can deal with them. And the more we deal with our stuff, the better our recovery is.
Tell folks the name of your business.
Steady Steps.
Steady Steps. Now,
Yeah.
I could go back over my notes. You and I have been talking about this for at least 2 years.
Yeah.
And something shifted in you. And you stepped right into it. Do you know what shifted?
Don't know. I think I just kind of got sick and tired of not doing much.
Yeah.
And I was kind of floundering with what I would do for work, and am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? And we talked about it also. I need to do something that matters.
Yep.
So then COVID hits.
Yep.
I have an opening date of April 1st, May 1st. I can't really remember right now. And I was like, oh my God. Still to this day, I've not been able to go into sober houses like I've wanted to. So I just started giving lessons, which is also part of it. Because what better thing than, I happen to have great students right now. I have one student who just cracks me up because she's 6. And I can't believe that my parents would let me ride a horse at 6. But I don't think she can ask me enough questions. And I just love that about her. She's so, and then she wears these pink sparkly boots and we have sparkles all over. And she's great, and I have another student who is a little bit older and she's very quiet and she listens very well and she does really well. And at least once during the lesson, I try to get her to laugh. And then I have my crazy boys who are all over the place. And I love teaching people how to ride horses. And so that's what I'm doing, is teaching people and also working with a couple recovery people and getting them to really dig deep into what their blocks to recovery are.
So I would say that you're passing on the gift that the horses have given to you. You're passing that on to other people.
Yes.
And that gives you a reason to get up in the morning.
It does. It does. And sometimes I still don't get up very early, but I get up. And it does give me a reason to get up. And, I have this great horse who is full of arthritis at the age of 9, which is really young. And, somebody said to me, why don't you sell her? And I said, no way. She saved my life. I'm just going to make sure she has a good life. And a little kid or here or there can ride her during the week. And the rest of it will work itself out.
So I want to circle back because you and I have talked about what my son Sean says is, don't forget to let the people know you do have a living son.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
You also have a living son. And this year has been a remarkable, remarkable year for your son, Ben. Tell people where Ben is today.
Ben, who is, I love Ben. God love Ben. He's so much half me and half his dad. And Ben was working for the family company when my dad had his stroke and would go in 2 hours early just to hang out with his grandpa, which I thought was cool. And then, by the way, he told me I'm not to talk about him tonight, but I'm going to.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So Ben, in his wisdom, went to school last year and he went to a local community college and he was like, this is horrible. And I was like, well, what do you mean? I got to get out of this school. I need something better. And not that he needed something better, but something different. And he said, Mom, I'm going to apply to Columbia. And I said, oh my, stop. You are not applying to Columbia because the tuition at Columbia, number 1, is more than our house is worth. And number 2, you'll never get in. And he got in. And he is now living in New York in an apartment by himself on campus at Columbia. And they are online. And He's doing great. I can't, part of me can't believe it. He is 22. So I've had a lot of time with Ben, and Ben needed to fly the nest. He needed to go.
And how hard was it for his mom to let him go?
Really, really painful.
Do you remember when you and I were talking about you flying to New York with him?
I couldn't decide. First, I couldn't decide, and then it was like I don't know. I hate New York. I really struggle with going to New York, and oh my God, should I do this? And then I made my reservation, and then New York was like, "Yeah, no, you can't come."
Thank God, because you didn't want to hop on that.
I didn't want to go. But I didn't want to tell Ben that, and he knew it, but I was like, "Oh, Ben, is there any way you can?" And he was like, "Oh." So when it finally came down to it, he was perfectly okay. I'm a month or so into living by myself, pretty much for the first time. And it's really weird around here, but it's great fun.
Give me 5 words that describe Bridget Murphy today.
Fun. Serious. Goofy. Smart. Educated.
This is a woman who shared with us that high school was tough for her because she had learning disabilities.
Lots of them.
This is a woman who, in her early 20s, I think 24, decided she had better stop drinking or she wasn't going to reach her 25th birthday.
Right.
This is a woman whose ex-husband died on their son's birthday. This is a woman whose oldest son, this amazing human being, died when he was 21. This is a woman who has never, ever, ever had another drink. You and I have talked about this. What is the percentage of addicts who relapse?
Well, I was told when I was in treatment to look to my right and look to my left, and that one of us was still going to be there in a year. And I thought to myself, we had talked earlier, and I said, I don't know. And I think I made a decision. I think very early on, I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this multiple times. And I think I made a decision to stay sober. And whether or not I did that for me or for somebody else or for something else, I don't know. But somewhere along the line, I made a decision and have stuck with it.
Not only that, but the Bridget that you've created, because I don't think we find ourselves. I don't think life happens to us. I think either on a conscious or a subconscious level, we create ourselves. And
yes.
you described yourself as fun, serious, goofy, smart, and educated. That is who you have created. That's based on the decisions that you've made. You know this. I am in awe of you. I am. I am so grateful that you were willing to have this conversation with me, because I want people to know who you are, because you are a remarkable human being. You are a remarkable study in what is possible. You shatter all expectations for what a person whose story has been your life should be like at this stage in your life.
Right. Right.
And you're like, no, 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 no. This I want to share with you, and I really, really want you to take this in, Bridget. I really want you to take this in. This is what people are saying. This is what Donna said. Bridget, you are amazing and an inspiration. Thank you for sharing your story. Rhonda said,
so huge.
Yes, Rhonda said, humor and laughter is one of the best remedies and feelings.
It really is.
Peggy said, Bridget, thank you for sharing your story. You are amazingly open and real. Marie said, Bridget, what an admirable woman, wife, mother you are. Thank you for exposing yourself like you have. God bless you. Andrea, who lives across the Atlantic Ocean, said, I am pleased I woke up now. Love listening to your conversation.
Yeah.
Gail Blank, who I got to know this weekend, who is a remarkable human being. This is her sense of humor. She said, nobody puts baby in the corner. That is so true. That is true, Gail. And Gail, that's true of you as well. My friend Jeannie said, thank you for sharing your story and being so open and honest. Andrea said, it's a good question. What's the horse's name?
Ivy.
Ivy.
Otherwise known as Miss Ivy.
Jeannie said, sounds like you are doing exactly what you were meant to be. What a beautiful gift you are.
Yeah, I am doing exactly what I meant to do.
Crystal, you're awesome. Thank you for sharing. Darlene, what a strong, encouraging woman you are. Deborah, thank you, Bridget.
It's funny, I never think of myself as strong.
You have never had a fucking drink.
I know. And here's what's so funny is the word Oliver. One of the reasons I like that name is because it meant strength. Yeah. So strength.
I know you were a little nervous about having this conversation.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Good. It's been fun.
Bridget.
Always fun to see you, Tom.
Bridget, you are a remarkable, remarkable human being.
Thank you.
I am in.
Who are you?
I know I am. I know I am, but I am in awe of you. I am in awe of you.
I'll let you come ride, but you have to agree to ride.
I promise you. You just tell me exactly what to do. I'm a really, really good student. You tell me exactly what to do, I'll do it.
I will.
Bridget, thank you, thank you, thank you for shining your light as brightly as you have for all of us tonight.
Thank you, Tom. What a great conversation it was.
You're
really
welcome.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome, sweetheart. I will talk with you soon.
Okay. Thanks.
Take really good care.
I will. Bye.
Thanks, everybody, for being with us.
Thank you, everybody.
Take good care of yourself, too.